Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to do a deep dive into some really important IRS updates coming up for 2025. We found this Kiplinger article, and it's got all the info. And honestly, you guys, some of these changes are pretty big, especially I think if you're thinking about long-term financial goals.
Yeah, that's right. The IRS is always changing things up, and 2025 is going to be a year with a wave of changes. These changes could affect things like retirement planning and healthcare spending. Even your tax bill might look different.
For sure. And so to help us all make sense of it, we're going to be talking to John White. He's president of Financial Guideposts, and he's an absolute pro at navigating these. Well, sometimes these IRS updates can get kind of complicated.
Yeah, and I always say that you got to have the knowledge to have the power, but it's only powerful if you know how to use it right. That's where a guy like John White is so valuable. He doesn't just tell you what's different. He helps you understand how it affects you, your own unique situation.
Exactly. So, as we go through everything, think of this like it's a starting point for a conversation with John. He can really help you personalize these changes and make sure you're getting the most out of every opportunity.
For sure. Why don't we kick things off with retirement savings? It's something that's on everyone's mind, and there are some exciting changes coming to 401k and 403b contribution limits.
Okay, cool. So for those of us under 50, the limit's going up to $23,500. That's a nice increase from 2024.
Yeah.
And the catch-up contribution for those 50 and older stays at $7,500. But, okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah. For people between 60 and 63, there's this super catch-up contribution you can make. So thanks to the Secure 2.0 Act, you can put in an extra $11,250 on top of the regular catch-up.
Wait, so that means that, someone in their early 60s could put over $30,000 into their 401k in a single year.
Exactly. It's an awesome chance to really boost your retirement savings as you get closer to retirement. I know these numbers can feel like a lot. It's exactly why talking to someone like John White can be so helpful.
I can see that. It's one thing to know what the limits are, but it's another to know how to actually use them the right way.
Definitely. John's really good at taking these complicated rules and turning them into a clear plan that you can actually use.
And, the combined limit for employees and employers, is that going up too?
Yes, it is. It'll be $70,000 for people under 50 and $77,500 if you're 50 or older. And don't forget, for those in that 60 to 63 range with the super catch-up, the total limit could be, get this, $88,750.
Wow. I bet John White is getting calls from people who want to, max out those contributions right away. Speaking of retirement accounts, what about SEP IRAs? Any changes there?
Yep. The limit for SEP IRAs is also going up to $70,000. Now these SEP IRAs are super popular with people who are self-employed. Small business owners love them too. This new limit just gives them more options to save for retirement.
I love that. It's good to see these options expanding. I think it shows how important it is to start planning early and take advantage of everything you can to build a solid financial foundation.
Yeah, totally agree. When it comes to retirement, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. John White really stresses that. He spends time with you, figures out what your goals are, how much risk you're comfortable with, and, really gets a full picture of your finances.
That makes sense. Everyone's retirement journey is different, right? Okay, so we've covered the big changes to retirement contributions. But what about those, less exciting but still important accounts like HSAs and FSAs?
Ah, yes. You could call them the unsung heroes of financial planning. They might not be as exciting as a 401k, but HSAs and FSAs, they're so important for managing healthcare costs now and in retirement.
Okay, cool. So what are the main updates for HSAs in 2025?
Well, the limit for individuals is going up to $4,300, and for families, it's $8,550. Now, the really cool thing about HSAs is that they kind of do double duty. You can use them to cover current healthcare costs, but at the same time, that money's growing tax-free. And you can withdraw it tax-free in retirement for qualified medical expenses.
Whoa, so it's like double tax savings.
Exactly.
I bet John White is a big fan of HSAs.
He is. He talks about how HSAs can be a really strong tool, especially with healthcare costs going up all the time. And, we can't forget about FSAs. They're getting a bump in 2025, too.
Right. The FSA limit's going up to $3,300. So how do those FSA changes compare to the HSA increases? Are they, as good?
That's a really good question. Both HSAs and FSAs give you tax advantages for spending on healthcare. But there are some big differences. With FSAs, it's usually use it or lose it, meaning you have to spend that money within the year. But HSAs, they roll over, so you can build up those funds over time.
That's a big difference. So choosing between an HSA and an FSA, it really just depends on you and how much you spend on healthcare.
That's right. And that's where John White's expertise is really valuable. He can help you look at both options and see which one is the best fit for your needs.
It's all about having the right tools. Okay, so let's talk about something that's probably on everyone's mind.
Yes.
Social Security. We've got the COLA increase and taxable income threshold and, of course, taxes.
Yep. The TOLA, the cost of living adjustment, will be 2.5% in 2025. Now, it's lower than the last few years because inflation's lower, but it's still important. It helps keep up with rising costs.
It's kind of a bummer. Are you hearing from people that it's just not enough to keep up with, how expensive things are?
Yeah, I am. And it's a real concern. Inflation's been tough, and even a small change in the CLA can really impact people's budgets. John White's aware of this too, and he's always looking for ways to soften the blow of rising prices for his clients.
That's good. What about the Social Security taxable income threshold? I hear that's going up to $176,100. What does that mean for the average person listening?
Basically, it means more of your income will be taxed for Social Security. It might sound bad, but it's important to understand the bigger picture. Social Security needs funding to support people now and in the future. This threshold increase is one way to keep it going for the long haul.
It's complicated for sure. I bet John White has some interesting thoughts on how these changes could affect people's plans.
He does. He's a big believer in looking at the whole picture when it comes to finances. Income, expenses, taxes, everything.
Right. Speaking of taxes, there's some good news there too. The standard deduction's going up.
That's right. It'll be $15,000 for single filers and $30,000 for married couples filing jointly. This could mean lower tax bills for a lot of people. But as always, it depends on your individual situation.
Of course. That's where John White's personal touch really shines. He can make sure people understand these changes and help them take advantage of every deduction and credit they qualify for. Speaking of deductions, there's one about gift giving that I'm curious about.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk gifts. The annual gift tax exclusion is going up to $19,000 in 2025. So you can give up to $19,000 to anyone without having to worry about gift taxes.
I actually used that last year to help my niece with a down payment on a house. It was great to be able to help her out without those gift taxes hitting us.
That's a perfect example. It's a really useful way to help people you care about without any extra tax problems. And for people with larger estates, the lifetime estate tax exemption is going up too. It'll be a big $13.99 million.
Okay, so that last one probably doesn't apply to everyone, but it's still good to know, right?
Absolutely. Estate planning is a crucial part of financial planning. And John White's passionate about it. He works with his clients to make sure their assets are protected and their legacy is passed on according to their wishes.
Having those conversations, making sure everything is in order is so important. Wow, we covered a lot today. We talked about retirement savings increases, HSA and FSA increases, Social Security updates, and even gift tax exclusions.
It's a lot, but remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more to consider when it comes to your personal finances.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to get advice that's made for you.
You got it. And that's what John White and his team at Financial Guideposts are all about. They take the time to understand you and make a plan that fits your goals.
Well, I think we covered a good amount of these IRS updates for now. But don't worry, we've got more coming up. In the next part, we'll dive into some other changes that could affect your financial decisions in 2025.
Yeah, and if any of this brings up questions or you're feeling overwhelmed, just remember, John White is just a phone call away. He knows his stuff, and he's genuinely committed to helping people achieve their financial goals.
Absolutely. We'll be back soon with part 2 of our deep dive into the 2025 IRS updates. See you then.
See you later. Welcome back, everyone. We're jumping right back into these 2025 IRS updates and how they might affect your financial picture.
Okay, so before we were talking about how important it is to get advice from someone who knows their stuff, especially with these IRS changes.
Exactly. It's kind of like having a financial GPS guiding you through all these complicated rules and regulations. And that's where John White really comes in, president of Financial Guideposts, He's got the expertise to help you avoid any financial potholes along the way.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we? We've got some more updates to talk about. There's something about a Roth IRA phase-out range. What is that?
Right. So the Roth IRA phase-out range, well, it's the income level where you can't contribute as much to a Roth IRA. It starts to decrease gradually. It's all based on your MAGI, your modified adjusted gross income.
So if you earn more than a certain amount, you can't put the full amount into a Roth IRA.
Exactly. And those income limits are changing in 2025. For single filers, the phase-out range is going to be $150,000 to $165,000. And for married couples filing jointly, it's $236,000 to $246,000.
Okay. So if your income falls within those ranges, maybe it's time to talk to a financial advisor, maybe even John White at Financial Guideposts, to figure out, what to do about your Roth IRA.
Definitely. John is really good at those tax optimization strategies. He can help you figure out whether a Roth or a traditional IRA is better for you over time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because with a traditional IRA, you get the tax break now, but then you pay taxes when you take the money out in retirement.
Right. That's it.
And with a Roth, you put in money after taxes, but you don't pay taxes when you take it out in retirement.
Exactly. And deciding which one is best for you, well, it can be tricky, especially when you consider your income now, how much you think you'll make in retirement, and what taxes might look like in the future. It's a lot to think about. But John White, he's really good at explaining it in a way that makes sense.
He's like a financial translator.
That's sure.
Okay, so we got the Roth IRAs. What's next?
Let's talk about the retirement contribution base. It's going up to $350,000 in 2025. This mainly affects people who make a lot of money.
What does that $350,000 actually mean?
It means they only look at the first $350,000 of your income when they're calculating how much you can put into your retirement plan.
No, so if you earn more than $350,000, that's something to keep in mind when you're saving for retirement.
Exactly. And this is another area where John White can be super helpful. He can help people who make a lot of money put together a whole retirement plan that considers those limitations and finds other ways to save so they can max out their contributions.
It seems like every one of these updates could change other parts of your financial plan. You can't just set it and forget it, Rick.
You got it. And that's why having a trusted financial advisor like John White by your side is so important. He's always thinking ahead, thinking about how these changes might affect your financial well-being down the road.
Like a financial chess master. Wow, we've covered a lot today. Retirement savings boosts, HSA and FSA increases, Social Security updates, gift tax exclusions. We even talked about Roth IRA phase-outs and contribution bases.
It's a lot to digest, but hopefully you can see how these, well, maybe they seem like technical IRS updates, but they can really affect your finances.
Absolutely, and this is just a starting point. The most important thing is to take this information and figure out how it applies to your situation.
For sure. And that's where John White and Financial Guideposts excel. Talking to him could be the push you need to turn this knowledge into action.
True. John White is an amazing resource, but we also know that not everyone can, have a financial advisor like him. What advice would you give to those people who are trying to figure this all out on their own?
I'd say start by taking a look at your current financial plan. Or if you don't have one, maybe it's time to create one. Think about your goals, your income, your expenses, and how much risk you're comfortable with.
So getting a clear picture of where you stand financially.
Right. Once you know that, you can start to see how these IRS updates might help you or maybe slow you down. Ask yourself, are you saving enough for retirement? Are you using all those tax-advantaged accounts? Are you ready for healthcare costs down the line?
Those are good questions to ask yourself. And, if you're feeling lost, don't be afraid to look for information. The IRS website, financial publications, even online communities.
Yeah.
They can all be really helpful.
I agree. There's a lot of information out there. But just remember, not all advice is good advice. Do your research, check people's credentials, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
And if you can, even just one meeting with a financial advisor like John White could give you some clarity.
Definitely. Even a short conversation can give you the knowledge and tools you need to make smart financial decisions.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered pretty much everything for this deep dive into the 2025 IRS updates.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
Just this. Staying informed about financial stuff, it's a journey, not a destination. The IRS updates, the economy, your own life, they're all constantly changing.
So true. It's always moving, and what works today might not work tomorrow.
Exactly. So keep learning, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep working towards your financial goals. And if you're looking for a guide along the way, you know where to find John White.
Absolutely. He's incredibly knowledgeable and such a great resource. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and helpful. Until next time, stay informed and stay financially savvy. Wow, it's amazing how much we've gone over in, not that much time. Retirement savings, healthcare costs, Social Security, even giving gifts. It really shows you how connected everything is when it comes to finances.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's like this big financial ecosystem. One little change can affect so many other things. That's why it's so important to step back and see the whole picture. That's something John White is always emphasizing when he works with his clients.
He does. He's always talking about the big picture. So as we wrap up this deep dive on the 2025 IRS updates, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
I'd say the most important thing is, don't freak out about all these changes. Instead, think of them as opportunities to, tweak your financial strategy, make sure it still works for your goals.
I love that. It's not about just reacting. It's about being proactive and using these changes to your advantage.
That's it. And that's what John White is so good at. He's not just reacting, he's anticipating those changes and using them to build stronger financial plans for his clients.
So it's like having a financial strategist on your side.
Exactly. I know some people are probably thinking, okay, all this financial planning stuff sounds great, but I don't even know where to begin.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. It can be really overwhelming, especially if you don't, speak the language of finance.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But remember, even small steps can make a big difference over time. Start by setting some goals, like saving for retirement, paying off debt, or building an emergency fund.
Those are all good places to start. And once you know what you want to achieve, you can look for resources and tools to help you get there.
Exactly. There's so much out there, websites, books, even online courses and workshops. And of course, if you want personalized help, a financial advisor like John White can be a game changer.
It's like having a coach in your corner, cheering you on and keeping you on track. When we started this whole deep dive, I was kind of nervous about these IRS updates. But now I actually feel like I can handle this.
Me too. It's amazing what a little bit of knowledge can do, right? It can change your whole perspective and give you the confidence to take control.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive on the 2025 IRS updates. We covered a lot, from retirement savings to healthcare, taxes, and even gift giving.
Yep, we looked at the changes, talked about how they might affect you, and hopefully inspired you to take charge of your finances.
And remember, if you're feeling lost or just need some guidance, John White at Financial Guideposts is just a phone call away.
He's a great resource, and he really cares about helping people.
Thanks for being here with us on this journey. Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered, and keep reaching for those financial dreams.